Okay, so what you are about to watch is me dropping a live Facebook feed. Earlier today, or earlier a couple days ago, I put out a question to parent. Anyway, I put out a question looking for what people wanted to know about childhood developmental disorders. And I did get a little bit of feedback from it. So this morning, I put out an event on Facebook, and I boosted that event, which reminds me I need to turn that boost off. But what we're going to do is go now live and answer the questions that we've had. We've had some people show some interest. We have no idea how many people are going to join us. But what I want to point out is that, number one, look at my desk, it's a mess, okay? Number two, I'm wearing a polo shirt, I'm not all dressed up, I'm human. I haven't even freaking shaved. Hey, the light right now in my office is terrible. I look at myself on the screen, I see this band of light coming down my chest. I do have my external light looking down at me. The light that you guys are looking at is terrible, but I've optimized what I've got for doing this. In hindsight, if I would have taken more time today, I would have moved this into a different room because I need to remember that this office sucks for light at this time of night, but it is what it is. So that being said, we're going to jump on this and hopefully we'll have some folks join us and we're going to rock and roll. So this is how it's done. Oh, one more thing about my setup. Right now, microphone going to this because this I'm recording three things in one thing tonight. Okay, I'm recording this video for you. I'm recording the Facebook live feed for people on Facebook, and then I'm also doing this because I'm going to turn this into a podcast. So without further ado, I am going to hit go live, and we're just okay. We are live, and we'll give people a couple of minutes here to jump on with us, and we are going to discuss these questions that I got online, specifically about ADD, ADHD, dyslexia. Hey Adele, welcome aboard, glad to see you're here. We're going to do our best to answer a couple of questions that I got a few days ago, and with whatever time we have remaining, you guys can go ahead and fire in questions that you have. We're not going to be here all night by any means, but there are certainly some topics here that I wanted to address. So those of you on Facebook, the screen that I'm looking right now is huge. So if I look down at the screen, you're going to see me looking down. The camera's all the way up here. I'm trying to make eye contact with you, but you're not here. So what we're going to talk about tonight is the ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, and some of the spectrum disorders that you're having to deal with. And what happened was a couple days ago, I went on Facebook and I asked the question of what do you guys want to hear, what do you want to know? And we're going to do our best to answer those questions. But what I also wanted to do is I've got a huge announcement that I'm going to make at the end of this, something that's coming down the road here that's going to be for you. So I'm excited to roll that out for you tonight, even though it's still in the works. I'm just letting you know that it's coming. So you'll see in the description of this video, there's a link. That link will actually take you to another website where you can register your email. And as this new product comes out that we're going to talk about, you'll see I'll send it to you first. It'll be more available here. So we've had a few more people join us, so let's go ahead and jump into this. The first question I got was for my friend Tamara. She asked me specifically about ADD. Tamara, your question will be answered as this time goes forward. Deborah asked me, how was it diagnosed? ADHD, can it be reversed, and what are the causes? We're certainly going to get into that. Rochelle was wanting to know about diet, specifically sugars, genetically engineered foods, GMOs, food coloring, BHT, sugar, and fluoride. We will talk about those specifically and generally at the same time. And Meg wanted to know about some undiagnosed food sensitivity, so we'll talk about that as well. Now, what I want to do before we get into that is I want to talk a little bit about brain development and how a child's brain develops from the moment of conception up until about they're 2 years old. So what you have to understand from the moment of conception up until about 2 is really when the right half of your brain begins to internally develop. And what I mean by that is the right half of your brain is kind of like a reasoning, logical, some people call it a brake pedal, while the left half is a gas pedal. But what we typically see is that anything that can happen during from the moment of conception up until about 2, anything that happens during that time, any sort of stress, is going to affect the right half of the brain. And when that happens, we see children start to develop these developmental type delays where they're not socially appropriate, their language has been affected, they're on the gas pedal all the time, they really don't have a brake pedal, they seem to be a little bit crazier, for lack of a better term, their behaviors are crazy, etc. That's what you see when you see these insults during that time. So we need to talk about what some of those insults are before we get into answering these questions. So when we're talking about from the moment of conception until birth, what we're really talking about is mom's health. And it's always important to me when I sit down with people, whether they're bringing them to me for a behavior or whether it's reading or whatever, I'll talk to mom first because I really want to know what mom's health is like. Because if mom has some sort of autoimmune problem, like if she's got like a thyroid issue or diabetes or MS or anything like that that's affecting her health, I want to know that because that's going to help us better understand what's happening to this child as the child is developing. Because remember, during that first, right before birth, that right half of the brain is the one that's developing. So what's mom's health like? And what we typically see is there's a shift in the immune system from the moment of conception to the first trimester. What we typically see is there's that part of the immune system that's really, really good at fighting off infections, diseases, etc. Where there's another half that's kind of dealing with more chronic problems. What happens is that part of the immune system during the first trimester is actually suppressed so the immune system doesn't attack the unborn child. Then we get into second and third trimesters and it switches so that the immune system is more protective of that child than it was in the past, now that the immune system recognizes it not being a foreign problem. So I see a lot of women that come into this office that have had thyroid issues that started during my first child, my second child, my third child, whatever the case may be. We see a lot of that happening. This is when I got sick. This is when the immune system really went ballistic, for lack of a better term, and that can certainly affect the development of the child's brain. So you've got to be really careful about history during that time because those are indicators that the right half of the brain can be developed. Now, once we hit birth, this is where we need to talk. Okay? Now, what I want to talk to you about tonight is basically what I call the 3 pillars of brain development, of a child's development. One of the pillars is actual brain development. That's what we're talking about now, where the right half and the left half, you really have to have some symmetry that is happening there. We have these things called the primitive reflexes. That's number 2. Your primitive reflexes are basically the reflexes that allow your child to develop normally, or to survive those first 6 months of life. For example, if you touch a child's cheek, what do? Well, they're going to turn and they're going to root towards that. If you stroke the palm of your hand, they're going to try to grab onto one another. So those are primitive reflexes, and those primitive reflexes are great, but they need to really be gone by the time they're 6 months of age, because if they're not gone, if they don't suppress those, the brain really can't develop normally, and you'll see things like reading problems and behavioral issues later if they're still there. And the last part of it is actually gut health. Your child's brain and their gut are inseparably connected, so when we start talking about these food questions that I got, that's a key part of this. I have no idea if my audio is working or not, guys, so if you could give me a little bit of feedback here just to let me know that you can hear me, I'd appreciate that. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep on rambling. So, in fact, let's just drop a comment in here now. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, boom, getting a couple thumbs up, so it looks like we're good to go. All right, so let's talk about birth. First thing we need to talk about is, was birth a vaginal birth or was birth a C-section? I'm not going to get into the controversy of C-sections. That's not what I'm here to do. There's children that need to come out that way. It certainly is going to save their lives. But the issue being is when they skip the birth canal, what they're missing out on is two different things. They're missing out on the normal flora that comes from the mother's birth canal, and they're missing out on the actual pressure that comes from the birth canal. So the pressure is actually going to help the children overcome these primitive reflexes that we've been talking about. The compression as they go through there and that squeeze really helps to develop and kickstart those primitive reflexes so they can go away later on in life. That's going to help the brain develop normally. The other part is the sterile environment that they're born into when they're a C-section. So when you go into a surgical room, you see all these pictures on Facebook of the proud dads and their babies and the proud moms and their babies, and they're suited up for surgery. Their hands are sanitized. They're clean as they're in a very much a sterile environment. And unfortunately, what that does is it takes away a lot of the bacteria that those children need to be exposed to at birth, so that their guts can have normal flora. So they have to be inoculated with some bacteria for their guts to develop properly, so you actually get those gut bugs that will help you to break your food down and get the nutrients that you need. So if we're skipping out on those, that's going to affect brain development severely, if I can say that, later down the road. It really sets them up for getting in the position where they're at now. So we need to know during the history. The next thing is once they're born, it's the first thing that they need is mother's milk. And it's not really milk at that time. When an infant is breastfed for the first 3 days, they're actually getting, thanks Debbie, I see the question, I will get to that. So what they're getting is colostrum. What we know about colostrum is that for those first 3 days of life, that colostrum is going to help their guts to actually seal up and become more of a filter to break the food down and to get the food into their system so they can use it as fuel. And if they don't get that, the gut doesn't form those little junctions in there, and it stays open, and the child is essentially born with leaky gut issues. And those leaky gut issues will spill over into inflammation and brain development later down in life. So the next thing that happens in the child is when we start pulling out the immunizations, we start pulling out the antibiotics, we're hammering this poor baby right in infancy with all these chemicals and all these things that are screwing up brain development, screwing up gut health. Look, this is not a forum tonight to sit here and talk about immunizations, whether they're good or bad. This is the only thing I'm going to say. Okay? I was born in 1978. That makes me 39 years old. When I was born, my list of immunizations was about this long. Today, when a child is born, their list of immunizations is, well, much longer, which increases the chance of chemical insult, which is not a good thing. So that's what we're going to deal with up until. So from birth until 2 years old, what happens to these children is we start introducing all these, other than breast milk, if they're getting formula, there's chemicals in formula. Right? They're getting sugar, they're getting chemicals, they're getting antibiotics, they develop their own food sensitivities as time goes on. These are issues that you're going to have to deal with later on in life, but the good news is, to answer one of Debbie's questions, can this stuff be reversed? In most cases, yes it can, and we're going to talk about that tonight. So that's essentially kind of the groundwork of what we need to talk about, and then I'm going to answer these specific questions that we have here, and then we're going to just rock and roll and see where it goes from there. So, back to the questions. Tammy, she chimed in last week and asked me about ADD. ADD, well, attention deficit disorder. Child can't sit still. Child can't process what's going on, and they act fidgety. So what do? Well, we want to dope them up on Ritalin. We want to give them fidget spinners. We want to let them be sensory, whatever. But the issue really is all these things that we've talked about has allowed their right brain, has made it so the right brain really doesn't develop appropriately. Children and adults both, we use certain frequencies of electricity for our brain to communicate with itself. And when those get scrambled, it's like the child really can't process things appropriately. Those need to be dealt with. And unfortunately, in the system that we have, it's usually diagnosed by an educator suggested, or the pediatrician suggested, and the only path that they really put them on are these drugs. And I want to kind of just help with some of those issues again tonight. So ADD is really a frontal lobe thing where the right half of the brain's not appropriately firing and the left half of the brain's going crazy, so they're on this fight or flight mode all the time, and they can't seem to be satisfied in their wants, needs to move and jump around. So Deborah asked me about diagnosis. I think we covered that. ADHD, can it be reversed? Yes, it can in a lot of cases, depending on what steps that we take. Deborah asked me about the causes, and we've covered those. Yes, it's caused by food. Yes, it can be caused by immunizations. Yes, it can be caused by all the things that happen to that child before they're even born or during that first couple of years of life. Those are certainly some causes as well. So let's talk specifically about diet for a minute. We jumped into to gut health. We talked about the colostrum thing, not allowing the gut to actually heal appropriately, so you get these little tight junctions in the gut that aren't tight anymore or never were tight in these particular cases. So Rochelle specifically asked me, what about sugars? What about genetically engineered foods? What about food coloring, BHT, sugar, fluoride, etc.? And all of these things can actually be answered in one way. They're not filtered out of the blood when the child has poor gut health. And when they're not filtered, then they get into the bloodstream. Then they can actually cross the the blood-brain barrier, and they start setting off these inflammatory pathways in this child's brain that literally impedes the child's brain to develop. Okay, let's use the specific example of food coloring. So you see all these, you look at all these candies and things that are available that are marketed to kids, and you flip over and look at the recipes, the menus, etc. And the recipes, look at me. The food labels is what I meant to say. You look at the food labels, and those food labels, they're full of chemicals, they're full of food coloring. When you consume those food coloring, it actually binds to different proteins. That's why your child's tongue turns red when they eat whatever's colored with the red food coloring. When it binds to those proteins, the immune system no longer recognizes it as a protein, and what will happen is the immune system will start to mount these inflammatory attacks, and the immune system will start going after it, and that clogs into that blood-brain barrier, and it really starts affecting these kids, their ability to function normally. Sugar, with sugar, it's going to fire the exact same pathways that dopamine, that is the pathway, the dopamine pathway is the pathway. It's going to fire the exact same pathways that any other drug, cocaine, crack, all of those are going to fire dopamine pathways. So these kids, when you see them addicted to these sugars, it's like they really are dope heads, but it's an acceptable addiction for them to have. And unfortunately, that really screws up brain chemistry and makes it really, really hard to function normally when your brain's going 9,000, like it's on speed all the time, 9,000 miles an hour. Antibiotics can do the same. So I'm getting ahead of my notes here. Fluoride, same thing. We get fluoride into the water because it makes our teeth healthy, but unfortunately, it's also known as a neurotoxin because the immune system will start to try to break that down, but it likes to park itself into the brain itself, and the brain won't develop because of that. So, and then Meg finally asked about undiagnosed food sensitivities. Meg, you're absolutely right. These can cause it, especially gluten. There's study upon study saying gluten, soy, dairy, all can contribute to these ADD, ADHD, dyslexia problems, because when you eat them, again, it throws off brain chemistry. And when we throw off brain chemistry, these children don't behave appropriately, they don't register things appropriately, and it can really start to create a mess. So, I've answered the ones that I got online earlier. Debbie, coming back to you. Debbie Baird here says, how do you deal with a child with ADHD and anger issues? I'm not here to answer parenting questions, Debbie, but what I have found from a clinical standpoint, and again, going back to those 3 pillars that we talked about, the 3 pillars being brain development, primitive reflexes, and gut health. What we have found for these issues in my office is if we deal with things, brain development, for example, if we deal with neurofeedback type pathways, that's the brain waves that we were talking about. We talk about primitive reflexes, if we can find and remediate those, which I'll teach you how to do. And then gut health is huge. If you can control those 3 things, help their brain chemistry calm down when you start actually feeding them real food, this is where these children really you start to see a difference in those children. So I hope that answered your question. I've covered the questions that I have. Unless you guys have anything else for me, I'm gonna just punch in a comment here before I make this big announcement. Questions do you have? Let's hear them. Okay, so here it is. I got looking at these three pillars: brain development, primitive reflexes, and gut health. And two of those three pillars are easily taught to parents. So what we're working on is a website, or it's a platform, it's an online platform. Okay? And if you go to the comments where that link is in the comments, if you go up there and click on that link, it's going to grab your email from you. Well, you'll have to plug your email in. And I see this being ready in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And basically what this is going to do is going to be an education on how to deal with this part called the primitive reflexes. Here's the best part. It's all going to be free. Okay? And the reason why I'm doing this is for free is because when you look at the system the way it's set up, Medicaid insurance, they'll pay for occupational therapy, they'll pay for speech therapy, which are fantastic things. Same thing with Medicaid. Jill, I'll come back to your question as soon as I'm done here. I'm glad you're with us. But they won't pay for the things that I've been talking about tonight. So I thought the best way to approach this is to give you as much as I can about these primitive reflexes, because you really can remediate them at home. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this platform together. I'm making the videos now, and this platform, you'll be able to go to this platform for free. We will teach you how to check for these primitive reflexes. We will teach you how to remediate these primitive reflexes. Okay? The gut part of this, there's enough information already out there online. It's going to be pretty minimal. I will get into it though, but all that's going to be free. So 2 of the 3 things you can handle at home, and we're going to teach you how to do this on this platform that's coming. Okay? The third part of it, the brain development part, this is the neurofeedback part of this. Okay? This is the part that won't be free, but we'll explain more once we get there, because this part is really individual for each child. Okay? The 2 of the 3, the gut health, the primitive reflex, we can teach you how to do that with this platform, where you just watch the videos. You're going to learn how to do the examination. We'll be here to support you if you need it, but we're going to show you how to do this. So if you'll go up to that link and click on that link, that will take you to, we'll grab your email. We will keep you informed. As soon as it's ready to go, we're going to get it to you. So, all right, that's it. That's my huge announcement. Online platform. We're going to teach you how to care for your own kids and take care of 2 of those 3 pillars that we talked about. Jill, you asked me what is the best path to build gut health in a child born by C-section. Probiotics. If you already answered this, sorry, I got pulled away on a call. Hey Jill, you're a busy lady, I know that. But yeah, there's some really, really good probiotic products out there. The trouble with probiotics in most cases is they are capsulated. So if you can get a child to swallow a capsule, that's great. I don't have a specific example of one, but Jill, if you'll private message me, I'll send you the specific example. The one that we use is from US Enzymes, and the name of it's slipping my mind right now. There are other powders that are available for probiotics that aren't encapsulated. You can actually mix those in a child's drink and get probiotics that way. So yeah, they've got to have probiotics. And I've always said too that kids just need to be able to play with dirt. Kids need to eat dirt. You know, we're trying too hard to sterilize their environment. Hand sanitizers everywhere, which if you've got a sick child, look, if your child's sick, don't take them to school. But you take your child to school, there's another child that's sick, we're dumping hand sanitizer all over them, when studies show us that it's actually the mechanical washing that gets rid of the bugs. But yeah, Jill, I think you have a boy. How old is your boy now, Jill? If you can in some way message me and tell me that. He's got to be 4 or 5 now, isn't he? Kids need to, they need to play with dirt. So, probiotics, they need to practice good hand washing, especially when using the bathroom, but constant hand sanitizing actually is detrimental. We'll get into that later. But if there's nothing else, guys, I've really had a lot of fun doing this, and there will be more of these coming. So if you could please, like this video, share this video, comment on this video. We'll do more of this. We'll answer more of these questions. And as this platform gets more and more ready, he'll be 3 in October. Thanks for chiming in, Jill. I love that you're listening. But as this platform gets closer and closer to being ready, we will keep you posted. I think it's going to be awesome, but it's coming. So thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate you being here, and we will catch you again the next time. So thanks for participating. All right. There you have it. Video's done. We had people actually participating. We're going to turn this into a podcast. We rambled on for about 25 minutes. And we're going to get 3 videos or 3 media formats that we can market for free from one video. So there you have it, guys. I'm going to go enjoy the movie Dunkirk and some dinner with my fam. So thanks a lot. See ya.